Most men think it's easy to tell when a woman likes them. A smile, a text, a little attention, and it feels real. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes she's not interested in you at all. She's just playing the part. And the scary thing? Most men never notice it. The signs are subtle, quiet, hidden in small behaviors that look completely normal. That's exactly why so many men stay stuck in situations where a woman is pretending to like you without even realizing it. In this video, you'll discover 7 signs she's pretending to like you and why most men miss this completely. And if you're a guy who wants to understand attraction, psychology, and stop wasting time on the wrong women, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. We're building a community of men who see the truth behind relationships, and our next goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers. Topic 1. She likes the attention, not you. A lot of men assume that when a woman replies quickly, laughs at their messages, and keeps the conversation going, it means genuine interest. But a man who's been around the block a few times learned something interesting about female psychology. Sometimes she's not interested in him. She's interested in the attention he gives her. It's a subtle detail, almost invisible to guys who haven't learned to watch behavior instead of words. She enjoys the conversation. She enjoys the compliments. She enjoys the feeling of being desired. But liking the attention is not the same thing as liking the man. Think about how many times a guy sends a simple message. Suddenly the conversation turns into something long, full of quick replies and emojis. It feels promising. It feels like something is building. But the moment he suggests something real, like grabbing coffee or hanging out on the weekend, the energy shifts. Suddenly it's maybe, or we'll see, or that classic line, "This week is kind of crazy." And then, a few days later, she pops up again, reacting to a story, liking a picture, or starting another casual conversation like nothing happened. This happens because attention has become a powerful currency in the modern world. For some people, especially on social media, receiving constant attention works almost like a little dopamine boost. It feels good. It's comfortable. And a guy who sends messages, compliments, and interest can slowly become a reliable source of that validation. The problem is that many men mistake this dynamic for emotional progress. Without realizing, they're just feeding a cycle that benefits only one side. A relationship mentor once said something interesting. When a woman genuinely likes a man, she doesn't just want his attention, she wants his presence. She wants to see him, be around him, share real experiences. Digital attention is easy to maintain. Real presence requires real interest. And that's where a man who's paying attention starts to notice subtle differences in behavior. Because when attention is the real goal, certain patterns start to repeat themselves. The conversation happens, but it rarely moves forward. The interest appears, but it never deepens. And for many men, that's the first moment when a strange feeling starts to appear, like something is slightly off. Something that becomes even clearer when another behavior begins to show up. Topic 2. Her interest only appears when you pull away. There's a behavior many men only recognize after they've experienced it a few times. As long as he's showing constant interest, sending messages, starting conversations, keeping things going, her response feels lukewarm. It's not terrible, but not exactly enthusiastic either. But something strange happens the moment he pulls back a little. Suddenly the woman who seemed distant reappears. A random message, a reaction to a story, or even a casual "hey, you disappeared." For a guy without much experience, this can look like genuine interest. He might think, maybe she was just busy. Maybe now she realized she likes me. So he starts investing energy again. He restarts the conversations, tries to reconnect, tries to build momentum again. But interestingly enough, the moment he becomes available again, the exact same pattern shows up. Her attention drops, replies become slower, and the enthusiasm fades once again. In psychology, this kind of dynamic is called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that keeps people hooked on casino games or social media apps. When rewards appear unpredictably, sometimes yes, sometimes no, the human brain tends to get even more attached. Without realizing it, many men get stuck in this cycle. They invest, get very little back, pull away, and then receive a small signal that reignites their hope. A common example happens on social media. The guy decides to stop texting for a few days. focuses on work, the gym, his friends, his routine, and then, almost like magic, she appears again. She likes an old picture, replies to a story, or sends a casual message. To someone watching from the outside, it looks like a normal conversation. But to someone who has seen this pattern before, it becomes clear that what's happening isn't real investment, it's more like an emotional pull. And once a man starts noticing this pattern, something else becomes clear as well. Because in many cases, she seems to enjoy the conversation. She seems to like the digital companionship. But when it comes time to turn that connection into something real, something tangible, another silent barrier often appears. Topic 3. She enjoys talking to you, but avoids real plans. There's a situation many men have experienced, but very few stop to really analyze. The conversation flows perfectly. She replies quickly, laughs at your jokes, sends long messages, and seems genuinely engaged. Sometimes the conversation even goes late into the night, talking about music, movies, childhood stories, or dreams for the future. When you're inside that moment, it feels like a real connection is forming. But interestingly enough, something changes the moment the conversation needs to leave the world of messages. When the man suggests something simple, grabbing coffee, getting a drink, hanging out on the weekend, the answers suddenly become vague. This week is kind of busy. Maybe another time. We'll see. It's not a direct no, but it never turns into a real yes either. And the strange part is that even after those subtle rejections, she continues chatting normally in the following days, as if the invitation never even happened. Without realizing it, some men end up stepping into the role of an emotional pen pal, someone who provides emotional companionship through messages. He listens, gives advice, entertains the conversation, supports her. Over time, he becomes a constant presence on her phone. But digital presence isn't the same thing as romantic interest. Many people enjoy the conversation, the attention, the lightness of the interaction, without having any real intention of turning it into something deeper. A classic example happens when she sends long messages, talking about her day, work stress, or little frustrations in life. The man listens carefully, responds thoughtfully, offers advice, and builds emotional connection. The conversation becomes almost a daily routine. But whenever the opportunity appears to turn that connection into a real-life meeting, the situation goes right back to the same place. More conversation, less action. And that's exactly when many men start noticing a strange pattern. The connection seems to exist, but it never moves forward. The conversation is good, but it leads nowhere. And when a face-to-face meeting finally does happen, something even more interesting can show up, something that reveals a lot about what's really going on behind all that friendliness in the messages. Topic 4. Her energy changes in person. There's a subtle detail that many men only notice after paying attention for a while. Over the phone, everything seems perfect. The messages are fun, light, full of emojis. She replies quickly, asks questions, seems curious. From the guy's perspective, it feels like there's real chemistry happening. But when the moment finally comes to meet in person, something feels different. Suddenly, that lively energy from the messages feels colder. The conversation still happens, but it doesn't feel as natural. The enthusiasm that existed in the texts doesn't show up the same way during the meeting. Eye contact is weaker. Body language feels more distant. Sometimes the conversation even requires more effort to keep going. It's not necessarily awkward, but it's definitely not the same spark that seemed to exist on the phone. That's because the digital environment allows something interesting. It amplifies certain emotions and hides others. Someone can seem extremely interested through texts and emojis, but physical presence reveals signals that are much harder to fake. Body language, proximity, eye contact, subtle gestures, all of these communicate far more than typed words. A simple example, during texting, she may seem excited about meeting. During the actual date, she spends a lot of time checking her phone, keeps physical distance, or seems eager to end the night early. None of these signals alone necessarily mean something negative. When they appear alongside high enthusiasm in messages, they often reveal a gap between digital attraction and real-life attraction. And when a man starts noticing the difference between the texting version and the real-life version, a new question naturally appears. Because if the interest were truly strong, shouldn't the excitement increase when two people finally meet? And that's exactly when many men begin noticing another revealing pattern about how genuine interest actually works. Topic 5. She keeps you around, but never invests back. There's a simple principle experienced men learn by observing relationships over time. Real interest creates movement from both sides. When two people genuinely like each other, there's balance. One day one person texts first, the next day it's the other. One suggests hanging out, the other also takes initiative. It's a natural flow, almost like a dance where both people participate. But when only one side is investing energy, something important starts to reveal itself. Many men end up stuck in a silent dynamic where almost everything comes from them. Starts the conversations, asks about her day, suggests plans, keeps the connection alive. She replies, sometimes even politely or warmly, but rarely takes initiative. If he stops texting for a few days, the silence can last much longer than he expected. And that's usually a powerful signal of where the real interest lies. A very common example happens on social media. The man sends a message, starts conversations, reacts to her stories, keeps the interaction alive. She responds, sometimes even playfully. But the opposite almost never happens. She rarely messages first, rarely asks about his life, rarely creates opportunities to meet. For many men, this dynamic goes unnoticed because the conversation still exists. But the effort behind it is almost entirely one-sided. A mentor once explained it in a very simple way. When someone truly values your presence, they naturally find ways to keep you around. It might be a simple message like, hey, how was your day? Or a spontaneous invitation to do something together. Real interest creates small initiatives. It doesn't need to be grand gestures, but it needs to exist. And when a man starts realizing that he's always the one carrying the conversation, something else begins to become more visible. Because in many cases, while he's investing energy, trying to keep the connection alive, other names start appearing more and more often in her stories. Topic 6. She talks about other men more than you realize. There's a detail many men overlook in conversations, especially when they're emotionally invested. During normal conversations, certain names start popping up here and there. A coworker who did something funny, a friend who helped her with something, a guy she knows who shows up in casual stories. At first, it seems like normal conversation. But when these mentions start happening frequently, there's usually a silent message being communicated. When a woman sees a man as a potential romantic partner, there's often a natural instinct to protect that connection. She avoids making constant comparisons or mentioning other men too often, especially in the early stages. But when she doesn't see him in that role, the conversation tends to become much more open in that direction. Other men enter the conversation easily, as if he were simply another friend in her circle. A classic example is when she shares little stories that seem harmless at first. A guy from work said something funny today, or my friend took me to this new restaurant. None of these statements are problematic by themselves. But when they appear repeatedly while the man is trying to build romantic momentum, they often reveal how she's positioning him mentally, not as a potential partner, but as someone safe to talk to about anything. Some men, trying to appear confident or relaxed, ignore these signals completely. They believe showing jealousy or discomfort would be a mistake. And in many situations, reacting with insecurity really doesn't help. But observing patterns is different. A perceptive man doesn't need to react dramatically. He simply pays attention to what the behavior is revealing. And interestingly, when several of these small signals begin to stack together, the attention that comes and goes, the conversations that never turn into dates, the lack of initiative, frequent mentions of other men, many men start feeling something hard to describe. It's not a clear sign. It's more like a persistent sense of doubt, a quiet confusion that doesn't seem to go away. Topic 7. You feel confused most of the time? There's a simple principle many men only learn after a few experiences. When a woman genuinely likes you, most of the time, things feel clear. Not perfect, of course. Relationships always have small uncertainties, but overall, there's a sense of direction. The conversations flow, the meetings happen, the interest feels visible. But when a woman is only pretending or keeping you around as an option, the dominant emotion tends to be something else: confusion. A man starts analyzing every little detail. She busy or losing interest? Did I say something wrong? Why does she seem so engaged sometimes and distant other times? He revisits old conversations, remembers past interactions, tries to find meaning in behaviors that constantly shift. And without realizing it, his mind gets stuck in an endless loop of interpretation. This confusion happens because the signals are not completely negative. If they were, moving on would be easy. The problem is that small positive moments appear in the middle of uncertainty. A great conversation here, a random compliment there, a date that seemed promising, followed again by silence, distance, or cold replies. This mixture creates a kind of emotional fog that makes it difficult for many men to see the situation clearly. More experienced men tend to use a simple rule when evaluating situations like this. Genuine interest brings peace, not constant anxiety. When two people truly want to be together, you don't have to decode hidden messages all the time. The behavior speaks for itself. There's consistency, initiative, and a natural desire to get closer. It's not an emotional puzzle that needs to be solved every single day. And interestingly, when a man finally begins to recognize these patterns clearly, he realizes something that completely changes the way he sees relationships. Because understanding these signals isn't just about avoiding the wrong person. It's also about recognizing when it finally appears, the kind of interest that's actually worth your time. Conclusion. Now pause for a moment and be honest with yourself. How many times have you felt that quiet doubt, like something wasn't quite right, but you couldn't fully explain why? The truth is, understanding these signs completely changes the way a man sees relationships. Because when you learn to recognize when someone is pretending to like you, you stop wasting time, energy, and attention on the wrong people. And that opens space for something much rarer, real interest. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these signs have you noticed in real life? Is there another behavior you think many men ignore? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your experience might help another man who's going through the exact same situation. And if you want to keep learning about female psychology, relationships, and attraction dynamics, things most men were never taught, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every video here is designed to help you see the signals most people completely miss.